Hello, I'm Somi. I'm the founder of the think tank for women in business and technology and the FemPeak platform, with the mission of raising women's socioeconomic status. I think by now it's no secret to anyone that I love working. I work incredibly long hours, about 14-15 hours a day, at least 6 to 6.5 days a week. I have almost zero entertainment, and I read at least one book per week. Of course, when I say work, this includes the time that I spend on research and development and learning new skills. Now, working these many hours requires being super focused, physically fit, and having a lot of energy, which comes with being very disciplined with your nutrition, sleep, and hormone regulation. I couldn't have done all of this without my amazing GP and nutrition therapist, Dr. Leah Austin, who is our guest on today's podcast. Leah and I often go for long walks and debate my crazy ideas about biohacking female biology to solve the challenges that many women face with PMS, childbirth, and menopause. We may not always agree, but as my doctor, I do listen to her. One thing is for sure, we never have a dull moment in our conversation, and so I'm sure you will enjoy this podcast as much as I enjoyed recording it. So Leah, today's podcast is very special because you're my doctor. So I want people to know that if we go into certain directions in this podcast and we have a bit of a debate, it's because we know each other, and we've always talked about a lot of things where we maybe disagree, but in the end I usually listen to you. So you were on the first panel and you talked about a lot of problems, issues that women are having that maybe technology hasn't yet come up with solutions for, or sometimes the technology is there, but maybe the governments and organizations or insurance companies haven't caught up with exploring these new technologies, right? So what we're really exploring with this think tank for women in business technology is we are looking at all the different solutions, all the different ways in which we can use technology to create new businesses, new industries that will ultimately benefit women, that will help women in their raising their socioeconomic status. But of course, you can't raise someone's socioeconomic status without helping them with their health, right? Mm-hmm. So you always tell me that, or you're like, what's the point of working so hard if you are not going to be around, right? Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about a few bullet points that you talked about in the conference. I've written them down, and I want to go through some of those with you. So one of the things that really stood out for me when you were talking at the conference was about a study that was done about male contraception. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that story, because that was really something that stood out.
So it was a study that was withdrawn. So the study basically was a male contraception. And it was actually, they got injections, regular injections over a course of time. And the study was actually withdrawn because men developed side effects. And guess what? The side effects were, basically low mood, injection site, discomfort. So no symptom that a woman hasn't reported in any of the other contraceptive trials for women. Mm-hmm. So would you believe that it was withdrawn because they thought it was too much for men to handle?
Yeah, that's incredible, because I feel like we are so far from having exhausted all the options in terms of what is possible with the least possible side effects, and women have been living with that, right? And it's been in many, I know that in many cultures it's just expected that is the woman's problem, the contraception is a woman's problem. So what's your experience with that? Have you noticed that? Or in the UK, when patients come to you, do you get the same kind of feeling where it seems to me that contraception has often been viewed as a female problem?
I think also women take that responsibility because they are, it's going to affect their bodies. So they're the ones that are going to get pregnant. So I do really feel, as a woman, I don't know about you and how you feel, I'm not sure how much I would like to trust my partner or sexual partner and trust that he's taking his male contraception, so that I don't have to take any. I'm not sure I could trust it fully anyway, for sure, unless maybe I was administering the injections. But I think that's why women take that responsibility. They're willing to go through the side effects. more so than men, because men think, oh, well, it's not my body that gets impacted. So they think, oh, no, we can't handle the side effects. So then women decide, no, we have to. And some women died in the original studies of the contraceptive pill, and it was still deemed safe and prescribed for us to use. I mean, shockingly.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Could it be a possibility that we can entertain the idea of being able to turn the period or the contraception, turn it on and off throughout our life? For example, if I don't want to have kids, say until I'm a certain age, why do I need to have the ovulation every month and the period every month? To put it simply, the question is our periods a feature or a bug of evolution? Because I think it's a bug.
Well, I would say I can see what you're saying, and it would be nice, wouldn't it, if you had no side effects to be able to turn the periods off and on when you when you like it. But actually, it's also a marker of your health. If your period is not working every month and you're not ovulating every month, and you're not getting, if you didn't have PMS, debilitating PMS symptoms, maybe some mild bloatedness, no mood swings, and still the energy was there, but still a little bit less, that would probably be a normal cycle. But I appreciate it's not optimal because, okay, you want to be on it 50, well, for you, for sure, you want to be 20 out of 10 all the time, or 150% all the time. And, even in men, day to day aren't 150% all the time. With the cycle, if you don't ovulate, there is definitely something impacting your reproductive hormones. And that's a sign, that's an early sign that something isn't balanced in the rest of your body.
What I'm talking about is gene editing, so that we can actually, I know that as our evolution is right now, if we are not getting a period, it means something's wrong. But what I'm talking about is editing our genes so that you can, at will, decide to say, yeah, I'm ready to get pregnant this year, so I'm going to turn that on. But the rest of 10 years that I don't want to be pregnant, why am I having to deal with that pain? And there must be a way to use technology to turn that on and off at will.
Well, the body is a very complex machine. So there are lots and lots of genes in play that help regulate your hormones. So there's not just one gene you're talking about. And almost you're talking about, the onset of puberty.
Yeah.
Almost, but not quite, because, obviously you still want the women's physique. I think we're way off anything like that. And if you mess up one gene, you're going to mess up something else further down the line. We don't know everything. And I think that's going to be the issue there. So there's, but actually you shouldn't be having a lot of pain during a period. You shouldn't be, it shouldn't be completely debilitating that you can't do your normal day functions. And I think some women decide that that's normal, but that isn't normal.
That is, but remember, you mentioned to me that 1 in 10 out of, so in a study that was done on 1,000 women in the UK.
1,000 girls.
1,000 girls.
Schoolgirls.
Okay, 1,000 schoolgirls in the UK.
Yeah.
So 1 in 10 have said that they have missed school days because of their period. So this, what this tells me is that actually, that if you say that pain is not normal and the mood swings and all the things that goes with it, if it's not normal, but so many people are having it, you mentioned something about 3 out of 4 women have had some form of
PMS
symptom. So surely, I mean, that can't be normal. That's why I'm saying I feel like this is a bug, not a feature.
I would say that there's 1 in 10 of 1,000 schoolgirls. That was because of not having enough sanitation, so sanitary towel being available. So it's kind of a poverty kind of period. And women, we need to be. It costs a certain expense to be a woman, especially having a period every month as well, and sanitation. Talking about what 3 and 4 women have PMS. There's a spectrum of PMS symptoms. You can have very, very mild PMS symptoms. You might even not even notice those symptoms. And I for sure did fit in one of those categories many years ago. And now I would say I would fit in the category of more noticeable PMS symptoms. And if you are getting those symptoms, there are ways that you can optimize and not have those symptoms or reduce them down with lifestyle and nutrition, and education does play a big factor in that. And when you talk about genes and women's hormones, you can, if you're genetically coded for maybe heavier periods, which you could be genetically coded for heavier periods. You might notice it runs in families, especially being a doctor. So if grandmother had a heavy period, then mother has a heavy period, and then daughter has heavy periods. And you might see it running in families, and it's usually due to a genetic variant that increases estrogen in the body, so you're more estrogen dominant, so you basically have higher levels of estrogen, and that could predispose you to heavier periods. Now, there are lifestyle things that you can do to kind of biohack those genes. They're your genes, you can't change them, but you can. There are, if you understand the genes and how they're working in the body, because environmental factors have their role as well. I'm not saying that just because it runs in family, it's definitely genetics, because it could be genetics and environmental and lifestyle, because obviously they've had the same experience growing up and the same lifestyle and the same environment as well. But you can biohack those genes if you know what they are, and you can see how they're functioning, and then you can either supplement or make sure that they're optimizing their lifestyle so that it can then become a more favorable function or outcome with that hormone, with the estrogen balance. So you get less estrogen further down the path.
Well, that all sounds good, but the issue, Leah, and we've talked about this a lot, when you talk about lifestyle changes, to me, it immediately means working less and slowing down. And I don't want to do that, and I feel like when you look at the top tier of business leaders, like politics, economy, in so many things, philosophy, you look at the number of people who win Nobel Prizes, women are a fraction of that. And I think a lot of it is due to all of these issues that we talked about. So in a way, a woman is forced to have a slower lifestyle. That doesn't sit well with me. And I think it's something to be addressed for women who want to, I'm not saying for everybody, but if somebody wants to be able to work, maybe create the same level of, or maybe more than, their male counterparts in many areas, they're going to have to be kind of slowed down because of.
I think there's many reasons why men are up there and women aren't as up there, and it's not just because of their biology. I do think there are.
I think it starts with biology, don't know?
No, I don't necessarily think it starts with biology, because I think if you look at the traditional male and female roles, was that because of biology? Was it?
Because biology says that
women are supposed to have babies
right?
At home. But was that the reason, or did men just decide that this is your role? I don't know where the decision was, whether it was all definitely biology.
But if you are the sex that has to
have a child, then you're 9 months out. Yeah, I suppose. But we also, you could argue. I mean, you're different. Everyone is slightly different. Everyone and what they want out of life is different, and I respect that. If you want to achieve what you want to achieve, that's great. If a man the same age as you was doing exactly the same, he is going to have also side effects from that, and it's going to affect his hormones and his reproductive hormones and his testosterone levels. So it's not just I'm worried about, as in like I'm worried about your health, but I would be worried if you were a man, my worries wouldn't be the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand, but it does seem like our biology does create a level of barrier, just the very fact that 3 out of 4 women have these symptoms. I've spoken to Dr. Sophia Yen as well, and we're talking about the fact that, obviously some women have got extreme end of these side effects, and unfortunately I'm one of them, and I've always been. I suppose you could say that I've always worked hard, maybe it's a lifestyle thing, and I come from a difficult kind of background. I'm sure that, growing up in Iran, under very difficult conditions, I'm sure all of that hasn't helped. But it does seem like part of it is just pure biology. And I just wonder if there's not enough research into helping women with these things. And then there's, of course, this is one of the things I said to Sophia as well. I was like, basically, when I look at my periods and I think if they are so painful and so terrible, I don't want to even think about what pregnancy is going to be like. It's out of the question. I don't want to go through that because, you know, it could be a lot worse, right?
Well, you know, we couldn't say hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I agree. There needs to be more research and a safer way of contraception than there is at the moment. And I think we've become complacent because this is available. And women are like, this will do. Yeah. And it's not safe enough. I honestly believe that it's not safe enough. It needs to be safer. You know, it wasn't safe enough for men to take it.
Yeah, and you know, going back to that, actually.
That's the shocking thing about it. It wasn't safe for men, but yet women are accepting that as safe because it's their bodies.
So you're thinking, so are you saying society is like less accepting of men being in discomfort, but more accepting of women being in discomfort?
No, I think women are accepting of themselves being in more discomfort.
Okay,
that's what I do.
Yeah,
but
if they say no, I don't accept this. This is just not good enough. You know, then they would put pressure on pharmaceuticals and corporations to.
I think that's a good possibility because we are accepting it because it's the only thing available, so we're accepting it. Whereas men were like, no, the side effects are too much.
Let the woman do it.
Yes, basically, you know, there's something else available and it's not our bodies, so we don't have to deal with it. But women, I guess, yeah, I think that's a good valid point, and I think we are accepting it.
Yeah, I think I have to look at some data on this, but it seems like definitely anecdotally that women have a higher pain threshold, and I mean the fact that women give birth, that's already right. You know, that's a very good indication, and I think society is like you know, maybe men think like my mom has done it, you know, like my sister has done it. You know, what's wrong with you? You know, what's your problem? And then I think also to some degree we maybe romanticize these pains, you know, and like people are like, this is one of the things I was talking to Sophia about. It's like people are like, they romanticize the pain of pregnancy and going through all of that, and they're like, and then in the end you get a gem. And I was like, you know what? Why not have an artificial womb, right? And I would like I gave the example. I said like we've got these plants, like a smart garden in our office, and every day. When we plant something new, you know, we're like, oh, look, you know, the girls come in and we're looking at, look, oh, it's growing. And imagine if this was a child and I could see the child grow in the tube, you know, in the test tube or in an artificial womb outside of my body. Would that make me love that child less? No. It would be fascinating to think that, like, you know, like you can see the child grow, but why do I have to go through that pain, right?
Well, I mean, there definitely is a role of, you know, women and men, and, you know, men not being able to be pregnant. I mean, we get to do this most amazing thing with our bodies. We do. We get to create life in our bodies. So it's not necessary. Some women don't go through. I think obviously there are symptoms of pregnancy. It's actually not that healthy for you to go through pregnancy. But then, you know, there is stem cell development in the womb that could be anti-aging. You know, some studies have reported that. But, you know, men don't get to go through that. There is a difference with the bond of a mother to their children than a man to their children. There is a difference. And whether that's chemical changes in the brain when a woman's pregnant and also when she delivers the baby, or breastfeeding, there is that bond between mother and child that the man isn't involved in.
I think yeah, I mean, I can see that for sure, but I just wonder whether we are romanticizing a way of being that we are used to because it's familiar. And all I'm saying is it's worth thinking about how technology could change the way that we experience parenthood and children. Like, I would totally have children if it was out of my body. Like, I'm like,
well, you know, there is surrogacy available.
No, I don't like that because you're still putting somebody else through that pain, right? And so it's more like, I like the idea of seeing a child, you know, grow in a glass thing, right? Like I know it feels quite futuristic and
it's very
futuristic, but that's where I will put my money in. Like when I would totally do that, you know, to invest in that kind of research to give people an option. Like, you know, if you had the option to say, do you want to, like, honestly, if this was a viable option for people, say, do you want to have children in your stomach or do you want to have children in, you know, outside of your stomach? And this way you will see every day, you get to see, you know, what's happening, and you know, I think you will have the same level of bonding, and if anything, maybe the male and the female will have similar kind of level of bonding in that sense, because they will.
That's hypothesized, right? You don't know the actual outcome, and what happens is will there be a disconnect between mother and baby if that was to occur? Maybe not so on a woman's behalf, maybe worse so on a woman's behalf. Women already suffer a lot in pregnancy and post-pregnancy with a lot of, you know, depletion of nutrients, but also, you know, a lot of women do suffer postnatal depression.
Yeah, and my mother was one of those, and as a result, we don't have a good relationship. We never had a good relationship. So actually, what happens is that sometimes, you know, the pain and suffering that the mother goes through because of that experience then has an impact on their relationship with the child.
And the child also is impacted as well. And, you know, will that be made worse if it was out of the body experience?
It could be better. It could be much better because the mother then doesn't have to go through all of that pain, right? My point is, like, we should give women as many options as possible. I think that in society, and I know that what I'm saying is a bit extreme, maybe very extreme, maybe, but somebody has to sort of go that far sometimes, and it's just, it's worth imagining. Like, when I look at the world, I try to imagine. I don't try, I naturally do. I just imagine a different way. I'm like, whatever way it is, it doesn't always have to be that way. You know, just because, you know, I mean, you think about evolution is not that evolution of life on Earth and mammals. You know, it's not that long in comparison to the number of years that our universe has been in existence. You're talking about 14 billion years of evolution of the universe, and then 4 billion years of evolution of Earth, and a few 100 million years of evolution of life, and then even less than that of mammals. So in the bigger picture of evolution, this doesn't feel like a long time. And also now we are, you know, for example, when you think about silicon life, right, silicon-based life, or artificial intelligence, there is nothing to say necessarily that this carbon-based life is the only way that it has to be. And maybe if we can have a combination of the two, you know, maybe we could create new experiences, new ways of being that would be that would entail less suffering, less pain. And I know it feels so so out there, but it actually isn't when you think about the bigger picture of evolution.
Obviously, methods and science has come a long way from when women go into labour and have babies. Obviously, you know, there's you know, babies are surviving more in, you know, childbirth, delivery, and mothers as well. So, you know, that's come a long way already from the back in the day where, you know, lives were lost as well. Women's lives or babies' lives were lost, and, you know, childbirth was, and still even to this day that does occur. Going to, you know, having the baby outside and looking at it, I mean, there's huge ethical issues that we could discuss and explore in every single way of doing that. It's almost, you know, you're going to the aspect of playing God, you know, and you know, we could have a discussion all day long about why that could be right, why that could be wrong in so many ways. I think that's probably not going to happen really realistically in our lifetimes.
I think it will happen.
In our lifetimes?
Well, you know, I mean, if you think about the speed with which technology is moving, maybe if not, definitely in this century, something like that will, you know, there will be I think there will be a huge shift in the way that we are going to merge with technology. I think it's inevitable, you know, like we are already kind of cyborgs, you know, like, look, I'm wearing this ring, you're wearing that ring, right? It's tracking everything we're doing. And what's the next step from there?
Well, first of all, let's take a step back. We probably wouldn't need these rings if there wasn't so much technology in this world, or, you know, in some way it hadn't progressed so far, and we weren't on, you know, now we have phones 24/7. But, you know, if you go back to when we were children, you know, actually, you know, mobile phones were just being developed. There were these big, massive brick phones your parent, if they were lucky enough to have one, would carry around. They weren't these little handheld devices. Now pretty much everyone has a mobile phone, so you can never switch off. You know, technology has evolved, but also so has chronic health. And also food. If you look at the food industry, completely changed from when we were children, or even when our parents were children, and what was available and how food is made. And actually chronic health is on the up. Chronic health problems, is it just because we're living longer? I'm not sure that actually it is just because we're living longer. I think that either pollution, the environment changes, maybe we're constantly on the go. We're having a stress response constantly. We're not getting that downtime to have our normal bodily functions of, our circadian rhythm of getting that light, then going to sleep, because we've got lights now, haven't we? So we can walk. In theory, we could, if we didn't have to sleep, we could work 24/7. But as we well know, if we don't sleep, we will die.
Yeah, but the problem is, Leah, when you say things like that, it feels like you're basically saying that the things that we are dealing with, the problems we have, is because of technology. But actually, the problems we have is not because of technology, it's because of population, because in a way, technology has enabled us to have more kids. So you think about from 1950 to now, within less than a century, within less than even a quarter of a century, the world population has tripled from 2.5 billion to 7.5 billion. So I think a lot of it is on us to be aware of, educating women, educating men, and thinking about why are we having so many kids? Why is the population growing this fast, right? Thinking about that.
It has grown, and actually David Attenborough does a very good, I don't know if you've seen it, documentary.
I've heard about it.
But he does say that we're peaking in population.
We certainly
because people aren't having as many children. Not all people are having so many children because either affordability, space, or they want to be able to work. They need a life. So there's many factors why people are having less children. So I do think we're peaking, and I do think population does have there's a reason for that, but I don't think it's just that.
But I think that increased population is causing us to have to come up with new ways of producing food to feed the population, and those are not always healthy ways, right? Imagine trying to feed 7.5 billion with organic food from Abel and Cole.
No, but that's not. I think it doesn't necessarily. I think the fact is that we've chosen. We're a fast-paced economy. People want that. We're consumers, and I think we're consuming, and we're not thinking about. We need to be more educated about.
Of course, absolutely.
About consuming in the right way, and I think because we're used to having what we want when we want. I think the industry is feeding that.
But my point with all of this is ultimately is that women need to be in the decision-making roles, right, when it comes to these things, because the model of the society that we are living in is a male model. The idea, the way that we think about even having children, consuming, this is a male model. We really need to have women in the decision-making roles, in the top tier, so that they bring a different perspective and a different way of thinking about quality of life, and especially quality of life also for other women. Because when you look a very good example of it.
But before you go on, women can't be women if you change their hormones, because that will have a knock-on effect on the way they think and their minds work. So women can't be women. You'll turn women into men.
No, but we're not. It's not about turning women into men.
I know, but I'm just giving you an example. As in, women are women for a reason, and their hormones also, the way the hormones work, are illustrated in the way they think as well.
I think regardless of gender, we all need to think about how we can use technology to improve quality of life, right? And I think that it's quite obvious. We just talked about so many examples in which women's lives are being affected because of menopause and childbirth and period and things like that. And there's a lot of room for improvement there. It's not about turning off the hormones. It's about, like I said, being able to control and decide when you want to do that. So for example, menopause is obviously a difficult experience for many women. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not looking forward to it, and I'm going to try and whenever that happens, to find every possible way to minimize suffering, because I've had enough suffering with periods. You know what I mean? Like, so
I think your lifestyle, when you are living in the fast lane, which we know that you like to live in the fast lane, you're probably going to impact your reproductive system, and you're probably not going to smoothly sail through menopause.
That's why I have you.
Yes, that's why you have me. However, having said that, so hopefully it'll come later rather than sooner. But I think the facts are, if you are overstressed and you're living in the fast lane, then menopause might come sooner. The symptoms might start sooner. Whether you go through the change at a quicker rate, very difficult to know. Everyone's slightly different. And no, I agree. I think women are living longer. Do I want to go through menopause? No, I don't. And I've seen so many women suffer. And I do think that, again, needs to be accepted in society, that hormones should be available and it should be a choice. And there is a way, and we know there are studies available that we can give hormones safely, bioidentical hormones safely, through and be monitored safely, getting into the older age. That's going to protect us from cardiovascular disease. It's going to protect us from Alzheimer's. It might even we might even overtake men in that sense.
Yeah.
For a general aging process.
I'm up for it.
But even men, though, I think, getting to the age where they should be, we should all be considering hormones to a certain extent, and all get them tested and monitored depending on how we're feeling.
So Leah, let's bring the conversation towards an end. I'm sure that I will have you again on the panel, and we will talk more again in another podcast in the future. But before we end, I want to talk a little bit about nutrition, because you're also a nutritionist, and we've talked a lot about you've helped me so much with my supplementation and the way I think about food. Despite my fast-paced lifestyle and working 16 hours a day, something has dramatically improved. There's a lot that you can do to feed your body with the right kind of nutrition and supplementation to enable you to overcome a lot of things, a lot of challenges, and work faster, harder. One of the things that obviously in NHS and in our kind of health systems, they are not available publicly or openly or easily, are first of all, supplementation in general. Obviously that's not covered, and it sort of doesn't make sense to me, because when you think about even health insurance, right, that they would cover things after they happen, but they wouldn't help you with preventing. And that's another place where I think maybe there is room for women to innovate, maybe to come up with a new but because when you look at the concept of health insurance, for many years, for decades, it's been pretty much the same. There's not been much innovation in that area, and I really think there is room for a female-led approach to health insurance and how we think about preventative methods. So do you have some thoughts on that? Is there something you can share to maybe somebody listening to this conversation will be inspired, female entrepreneur listening to this, thinking, I think there's something in that, in a new way of thinking about health insurance for women.
I think it's quite, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the bureaucracy of healthcare. They want you to be worried enough that you're going to be sick to pay for health insurance. But they don't want you to be too well, because then you'll think I'm too well and don't feel like you need health insurance. I definitely think there's a gap, because you're right, in the medical system, this is why I studied nutrition, because I really felt that I was service provision. I was good at prescribing medication, and again, in the NHS, you only have 10 minutes with a person. So it's very different to private healthcare, where you can choose how long you have with a patient, or self-funding patient. I think preventative medicine is huge, and actually I think everyone in some way could do with their doctor. They need their doctor. We're used to having a doctor. We need someone to guide us through our life, because that's not our profession. If you're not a doctor, It's not your profession. It's not your profession to go and study all about health. Your trust is in the doctor to be able to give you the best advice available so that you can decide which path you want to go on. And I feel that pharmaceutical companies have taken over a little, because now it's, for example, when I was working in the NHS, you have 10 minutes with a patient, they have a problem. And I see it time and time again when I was studying to be a general practitioner, that people don't change their lifestyle because that's what they're used to and they don't want to change. You know, you want to live in the fast lane, you want to live in the fast lane. So it's like, well, what else can you do in 10 minutes to really plant the seed of, okay, well, maybe you shouldn't be living in the fast lane, or maybe you shouldn't be smoking, and try and persuade that person to stop smoking, or their cholesterol's high, to stop, you know, to make sure they reduce their stress, they exercise regularly, they eat a whole food diet, not too much sugar, not too much saturated fat. You know, to change that lifestyle in 10 minutes is probably almost impossible. Unless for some reason you're that 1 in 1,000 that decides, no, I have to change it. Then you prescribe a medication that takes one problem away and then gives you another, and it causes a cascade of problems further down the line as you get older. I see the need for biohacking. Certain medications can help with this problem. It's the same with supplements. You know, if you take something which might enhance something else, there might be a drawback later down the line if you don't know what you're doing. So it's important for you to have that doctor that's there, that's knowledgeable, so they can guide you through that health process, but also have the time to be able to guide you.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this concept of preventative insurance, you know, like some form of insurance that's focused on the occurrence of illness rather than post.
Well, we know you're living in the fast lane,
Yeah.
so we know what's likely going to happen. We don't have a magic ball, so we can't guarantee, but we can say, okay, well, you're living life in the stress zone, your fight and flight zone. We need to balance out and make sure that we're supporting the rest and digest system, which is your parasympathetic. And if we don't, you're going to increase your risk of a heart attack or stroke or a burnout.
I don't feel stressed at all, and I don't feel that I'm living in a stress zone. If anything, I'm just thinking about, you know, like being in a flow, right? And my flow is fast, right? So if you're like, you know, a kind of person, I think it's just about understanding how you operate best. And like speed is one of the values of our company.
But I'll give you an example. If you don't sleep, you can see the problem.
Sleep, of course.
Yes,
yeah.
You can see the problem. You know, you have a knock-on effect on how you're feeling if you don't sleep. That's an example of what happens if you're not getting your rest and digest and repair. And I would say maybe 2 years ago, you were definitely
when
place.
I came to see you, I was in a very bad place.
Yeah, so you know, that is somebody with no, you know, you're running on yourself. Now you've got someone to help you to go, okay, let's help support your current lifestyle. However, let's hope it's enough if you really want to live this lifestyle, but it may not be enough. Let's hope it's enough.
I think the worst thing, you know, when I came to see you, I think the thing that I didn't understand and I didn't appreciate was the value of sleep. I thought that I could get away with less sleep, and I took pride in it, and now I see how stupid that is. So then I obviously I worked with you, but also I read the book by Matthew Walker on why we sleep, which completely changed my view of the importance of sleep. So now, no matter what happens, actually usually the girls, they're behind the camera now, and sometimes when they arrive, they see that I've just woke up because even if I do work till late, I try to get 7 hours sleep. You know, it's like the least I would get would be like 6.5, 7 hours, and I try to give myself 7 to 9 hours of. Well, I don't really, you know, I'm lying, but I do give myself at least 7.5 hours of sleep opportunity, and then out of that, I hope to get at least 7 hours sleep. So because Matthew Walker says you need to give yourself 7 to 9 hours of sleep opportunity, and I used to do that. I used to be able to do that before I started the Femme Talent movement and the think tank. But now, because I'm running that and our original company, the marketing agency, agency. Now there's 2 of them. So hopefully as this takes off and I can have more
You'll get
help,
back to that.
I will hopefully be able to. But look, I don't watch TV. I don't watch any kind of TV series, movies. There's no entertainment in my life. So I was like, if I'm going to have 7
Not
to 8...
digital entertainment.
No entertainment.
There's friends, social events.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. But
reading
friends,
books sometimes,
yeah, of course, yeah.
So
I read books. Well, I listen to audiobooks, so I probably listen to 1 audiobook per week, and I do that while I'm, washing dishes and tidying up and making my bed, things like that.
And it's possible that if we hadn't worked on, your lifestyle and nutrition and maybe supplementation, then actually you wouldn't be where you're at now.
No, absolutely wouldn't.
You could argue that we prevented something from happening.
Yes.
There. And I do think that there's a huge scope for doing that in healthcare, because as a nutritional therapist and as a medical doctor, I can do a health screen with somebody and I can see their lifestyle in front of me, and I can see what's going to happen in the future, what they're eating nutritionally, what they're likely to be deficient in, what knock-on effect that is for their future, and explain that in a term that that you can understand or they can understand. So then the switch goes on and it's the seed of planting that seed of,
exactly.
Okay, I might have to do something here. And then I've had patients come back to me 6 to 12 months later gone, you know what, I didn't realize, and you were right. It was the beginning stages of something. And, I hope that that's enough to prevent what I can see visually from my experience.
Yeah, no, I hope so too. For sure, obviously I don't eat any rubbish, and I'm always eating my alfalfa sprouts, and people look at me like she's mad. I'm not eating broccoli sprouts for breakfast every day.
Good, I'm good.
Thank you so much, Leah. I think it's been great talking to you as always. I really enjoy. Sometimes I wonder when we're going for walks and have these long conversations, I should just not tell you and record our conversations because they're always so fascinating and interesting. And I'm like, oh, this could be great podcast content. But thank you so much, and I'm sure I will have you on the podcast again.
Thanks, Somi.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Leah Austin. When I was a young girl growing up in Tehran, I dreamed of becoming an astronaut. But I wasn't good enough at math and physics. And of course, girls all over the world have historically had far more limited opportunities to pursue such dreams. But the notable woman that we will remember today was chosen among over 1,000 applicants for a spot in the NASA astronaut program. Sally Ride was the first American woman to travel to space on the Shuttle Challenger in 1983. Here's to seeing more women leading human explorations in space. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, and connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram.